Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt. With me today, the man who is thoughts become things, Neo Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Now, I have to be honest. The honest truth is that over the last 24 hours, I picked up a little bugs, a little sniffles thing, and it really just ruined my schedule because I had things to do. I had places to go, and then the universe is saying, no. You're going to sit back. You're going to relax. You're going to de-stress. I said, oh, you've been paying attention, have you? Okay, yeah. Right. So good thing Neil's joining me today. He's going to actually do most of the interviewing of our guest, who is Allie Cass. Who, by the way, recently celebrated her birthday. Happy birthday, Allie.
Thank you.
She is a certified personal trainer. She's a nutrition coach, integrative nutrition for that matter, and a health coach, very much into the holistic health approach. And she's going to be talking about that today. One of the things, Allie, that you mentioned, by the way, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. But one of the things you mentioned in your profile, you're all about the gut health and the hormones. And I thought that was an interesting combination right there. Can you kind of elaborate on that one?
Absolutely. So it seems like an interesting combination, but what's actually interesting is that, the body is so integrated and everything is connected. So when we think of the body, or, we think about what we were taught in science class, or, whatever education growing up, in Western medicine, we have a very structured approach to, we teach about the heart, we teach about the brain, we teach about the endocrine system, all of these different parts, when in reality, they're all interconnected. And so when there's dysfunction in one, over time, if that's not addressed, that's likely going to create dysfunction, downstream somewhere else. And so looking at things like gut health, if you've heard of Hippocrates, he was, kind of the father of medicine, so to speak, is what he was referred to. And, that was hundreds of years ago, before we had any of these advanced diagnostic tools or any of these advanced medications or protocols and things. And he was the first person to say that all disease begins in the gut. So I only share that because it really just goes to show how much of our overall health starts in the gut or is impacted by the gut, including hormones. So, we look at things like hormones, our ability to produce them, to metabolize them, to excrete them. When we're not doing those things properly, when our gut health is also not intact, we aren't able to do those things as well. And then, we start to create dysfunction in the body, hormone imbalances arise, and there's many other factors that go into it. But that's one really basic example of just the interplay between everything that's going on, not just in the body, but in the mind, which I'm sure we'll talk about very shortly, and how all of those things are connected and how that affects one's ability to reach kind of that state of optimal health or transformation that they're seeking.
All right, good. And I know Neil is champing at the bit to talk about LOA and all the other good stuff. But before we do that, we got to lay a little more foundation here. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to be where you are today? And, any interesting stories you want to include with that? And, just kind of give us like the little biography, so to speak.
Awesome. So I'll try to give you guys the shorter version, or we'll be here all day. So I grew up as an athlete. So sports, fitness, just, physical competition was always a value for me. And it wasn't until I was in college, I was playing Division III basketball, realized that I no longer had the love and the passion for it that I once did. So I quit. I decided to pursue other things. Like many college kids, one of the things I pursued was drinking a lot of alcohol and living a terrible lifestyle. So in that process, I realized, wow, I don't know what it means to be healthy. No one that I knew that I was friends with in my family, like no one was setting a very good example for me. And so that was kind of my first interaction with like, okay, I gained weight. I was no longer working out at the extent that I once was. I wasn't nourishing my body. I was tired all the time. I was the heaviest that I'd ever been. And I just felt icky. And I was like, I'm 21. Like this should not, I hear people who are in their 60s complain about this, which plot twist, even if you're in your 60s and you're listening to this, like you can feel amazing. So it's not about age. But at the time I was like, I'm way too young for this. And so I just realized how little I knew and how little, that was taught, whether it was in athletics, where I grew up, in school, from parents, things like that. And so, I kind of started trying my own things. Like most people, I went on the Atkins diet, and I was doing like these high intensity interval training workouts and just trying all these things and, having a little bit of success here and there, but nothing was sustainable. Nothing was providing me with the education and the tools for me to feel empowered, to become healthier. Fast forward about a year, I graduated college, and shortly after, my mother was diagnosed with stage 3 brain cancer. So I moved across the country. I became one of her primary caregivers along with my father, and she only unfortunately made it about 9 months. But it was during that process where I just realized how many gaps we have in our Western medical model. And so it was kind of a coping mechanism. I was just telling a story about this morning. I wanted to ask why, because she was a very healthy person. And so when we got that diagnosis, I was shocked and she was shocked, but no doctor could give us, a reason. They were like, well, we don't know. It's, whatever. And that wasn't good enough for me. So in the process of, kind of helping her transition to whatever is next, I started doing so much of my own research, asking questions like what makes someone healthy, what causes cancer, what feeds cancer. And just, the more I learned, the more I realized was out there to learn. Like I always say, the more I know, or the more I learn, the less I know. And that was really the start of that. I started learning about nutrition, environmental toxins, even how, our mindset, our thoughts, our traumas that we are not able to let go of, how that actually affects us at a physiological level. And I just became fascinated. And I really think it was a coping mechanism for me at the time. But it really fueled a passion in me that I was like, okay, why are we not talking about these things? Why are we not, educating more? Like during her whole 9 months of treatment, like no one ever talked to us about nutrition. No one ever talked to us about, meditation or just any other alternative complementary medicine things that we could do alongside what we were doing in the more conventional realm. And I was just really mad about it, to be completely honest. And so I was like, okay, I should try to use this anger productively. And it really just fueled my passion for health, wellness, and looking at things in a more holistic light. After she passed away, I was still kind of in that place where I wasn't feeling my best. I was, again, just feeling very depressed, not feeling good in my own body. And I hired my first health and fitness coach, and she totally transformed my life. She convinced me to compete in bodybuilding, which I thought was an awful idea and I had no interest in. But the athlete in me was like, I need a goal. I need to work towards something right now because I feel very lost. And it ended up serving me really well for the time that I did it. And it helped me really get back on track. But I also saw, going from being very unhealthy to then being like hyper obsessed with health, and how that can be detrimental as well, especially from like a mental health perspective. And so after I competed a couple of times and got my pro card, I was like, okay, I need a break. But I was still very passionate. And I realized that I wanted to help other women, people in general, but women in particular, because I can relate with being a woman. And yeah, that was kind of the start of my journey. And I ended up working with my coach as her assistant. She went on to make a career pivot. I bought her business, realized that I was passionate about the business when I started it, but I, desired to work with women at such a deeper level. And so I rebranded, I've pivoted, I've gone through like 5 or 6 different certification programs. I'm going through another one right now because I just love learning that much. And, now I'm here.
Wow. Yeah, there's a story for you. By the way, spoiler alert, any question that you ask a doctor about what the cause is, it's always the same answer. We don't know. So,
Right.
But Neil, okay, Neil's ready to go here, which is just as well because I'm sniffling like crazy. So you do the talking. I'll intersperse, a few comments here or there. But Neil, you're going to take over here.
No, I'm all in it. I've just learned about gut health within the past 4 months, and it has been such a journey. I lost everything for a second. You still there?
Yep.
I think I just lost power in my house. Everything just turned off and turned back on before it ended. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm cool with it. So anyway, gut health, breathing exercises, belly breathing, all the stuff I've been talking about. And I have the law of attraction summits. I've been bringing speakers on just to talk about these things. So yes, it's absolutely amazing. The only thing I haven't really gotten into was what to eat. That's such a broad, wide question that we might not even get into today because there's so many different vegan and vegetarian, but I'm all for it. There's something going on down here that we need to be more focused on. They say the body has 3 brains. We know about one. There's a second one. And somewhere in here, there's a third one, over here somewhere. And, you can't just be focusing on one or just improving one. Painted over rust. is the phrase that comes to mind. You know, you can work on this as much as you want, but if you're rusting down here and vice versa, you could be on the best diet in the world in perfect physical peak condition, but stressing every day. You know, so you got to make sure you tackle all areas. I love it. Law of attraction. We started to get into it before this show, but I was like, wait, let's save it for the audience. When did you learn about it? How did you learn about it? And like, how have you been implementing it into your life since then?
That is a great question. I think, like most people, my first experience with hearing about this law of attraction was the book and the movie The Secret. I want to say, gosh, I just had my 30th birthday. So that was probably about 10 or 11 years ago when I was kind of first turned on to it. I had a girlfriend in college who read the book. She's a very spiritual person. So she kind of introduced me to it. And I was kind of like, oh, cool. Like, I want to know the secrets, you know, somebody tell me. And so, you know, I read the book, I watched the movie once that came out. And, you know, it was something that I was like, okay, this makes sense. But it wasn't really something I spent a lot of time kind of embodying or integrating. And then I want to say it's been something that's kind of come up as a theme throughout, you know, my life since then. And it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago that I really started like looking back at that and looking back at the law of attraction and manifestation and all of these things that we talk about. Because like you just mentioned a few minutes ago, I was that person at one point in time who, you know, my physical health was great. My nutrition was on point. I was taking really solid supplements. I was exercising every day. I was doing all the right things, but I was not feeling my best. And it was because of, you know, what was going on in my mind, my stress, my inability to let go of emotions that were keeping me blocked from, you know, showing up as my best self and basically attracting what I wanted into my life. And I was, you know, for a brief period of time, I was like, why do I not feel, you know, the way I want to feel? I'm doing all the right things. Then I had that kind of come to Jesus moment with myself where I was like, oh, because that stuff matters too. And so, you know, it was really then where I was like, okay, I need to do the work up here. I need to, you know, figure out where I'm directing my attention. I always tell my clients where where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so, you know, looking at where am I spending my time, my mental energy, and again, like what am I consciously or subconsciously allowing to come into my life because I am attracting that. And once I started just approaching different areas of my life with that mindset, it was amazing how much more control I felt over scenarios and how much I felt like I could take ownership for what I was experiencing, whether I liked what I was experiencing or not. It kind of gave me that ability to say, okay, you know, even if I don't like this scenario, you know, what role did I play in this? What did I do, or what am I thinking, or what am I creating in my life that's causing this to come in? And how can I change that, or how can I respond to this so that I can make it something I want? And it's, you know, an ever evolving practice. But yeah, it's been, and, you know, I think like one of the most basic examples where I really started to see this is like when you wake up one morning and, you know, you like burn your hand while you're making coffee, or you bump your toe, or you do something that just kind of like makes you mad, and it just really starts your day off on the wrong foot. And then like all of a sudden your day just like snowballs with these little things of like, you know, now I got cut off and I'm late, and like all of and I just really started to recognize like, wow, when one little thing happens to me and I don't consciously choose to like redirect where I'm allowing my thoughts to go after that, like I am causing this snowball. I am asking for this to come in with the energy that I'm putting out. And so I was like, okay, like I think there is something to this. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my experience. And obviously I've tried to harness that in my life and in my business and in my health, especially, which, you know, I think we can get into at some point.
Real quick, how could people, do you have a website or?
Yes. My website is www.alliecasthealth.com.
C-A-S-T?
C-A-S-S.
Health.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put it on here just so people can see it. You know what? Let me make it scroll across the bottom of the screen. There we go. You know what's something you said that really resonated with me, and you didn't say it like this, but I say it's owning your shit. For something bad to happen every day, something bad happens to everybody. And there are two ways to handle it. why did this happen to me? This person did this and that person did that. Or what have I been thinking to manifest that into my life? And that is the definition of owning your shit, where your headspace has been. And there's so many people that come to me and they're like, I didn't manifest that car accident, or I didn't manifest my grandma dying. And it's like, you might not have been thinking about the car accident, but you were thinking about some kind of drama, some kind of pain, some kind of feelings. And the universe gave you a similar feeling. And we all know that at some point, everybody got to go. So when you do think about your grandma in the back of your mind, you do know that day, is. And so owning your shit is such a critical part in the law of attraction, because once you start blaming other people, you manifest situations that make you want to blame other people again. Sucky situations. So I love that so much. Do you have any type of morning rituals? I know people that are usually into fitness have routines that they do every morning, and like me, and I'm strict with them. Every morning there's a couple things, both physical and mental, that I do. Do you have anything that you do as far as, law of attraction, meditation, anything like that?
So I do. My schedule recently has changed, and as such, my morning ritual has kind of evolved over the last couple of months. But first and foremost, I wake up. My alarm, like the text that you can set like a little message. It's actually an affirmation, which talks about like I bring in like badass women into my life and into my business. And so it's just a reminder for me as soon as I open or I look at my phone in the morning, like, oh yeah, like I do that. And so just first and foremost, like those little things for me personally, kind of just plugging little things like that in here and there to my day is super beneficial for me. I try to meditate every morning. I will say it's not something that I'm as consistent as I would like to be. So I oftentimes am meditating later in the day.
What everybody says about meditation.
I know. But recently I have, yes, I have been making getting up about 30 minutes earlier than I otherwise would a priority. I have my quiet time. I actually have a book right now that I'm reading about Ayurveda, which is just another, alternative, very old school of thought with health. And I love the book, but I read it because I spend about 10 to 15 minutes reading it. And it really just puts me in my parasympathetic nervous state before I go see clients, before I go take care of whatever I need to take care of. I realized for myself, I was like, all right, I got to get up. I got to make my coffee. I got to do this. I got to get ready. I got to go. And then I'm on the go for a good majority of the day. And so for me, just to be able to take that like 15 minutes and just be still, sit with my coffee, read, reflect, just not get up and like sprint to all the things I have to do. And, whether that's through meditation, through reading a book, through simply just going outside and enjoying some morning sunlight, because that's great for your circadian rhythm, whatever it is, just that like little piece of solitude. It's made me so much more resilient to the stressors that pop up during the day. Like I get less triggered when there's crazy traffic or, when something happens. I feel like I'm able to handle it at a much better pace.
The amount of benefits that come from that type and that level of discipline it's just uncanny. For one, discipline in itself, doing something every day, that can help you in any aspect of life, whether it be complimenting your spouse, spending more time with your kids, or eating healthy. But then you bring in the sunlight, the dopamine or vitamin D. You bring in any type of like I would like to laugh for 60 seconds. Setting that tone for the day, setting intentions. Oh my goodness. I've talked about it for years, but didn't really did it. My intention was always to have like a great day and do what I love, which I do every day. But like last week, I started setting insane intentions. Like, you know what? I'm going to land this contract today. And it just started happening. I was like, oh my, what have I been missing out on all these years? And I was batting 1,000. Like every day I was doing insane stuff. And then it kind of stopped. And I was like, all right, what changed? What changed between those other days and the days and it stopped? And for me, it's the expectation. When I set the intentions the first couple of days, I went in confident. This is what's going to happen. There's no other way. There's no other outcome. Like it already happened yesterday. That's how confident I was. But then as the days went on, the ego started to chip away. All right, you're batting 1,000. It's only a matter of time before you start to slip. you know, and those type of that type of stuff, you know, tends to get in your head. But morning rituals are amazing. I've had people that say they don't like to use the word ritual. I don't care what you call it, but get up and do something other than run to the computer or pick up your phone and start answering emails. That is so critical. I don't care if you don't do anything for the first hour, but stare at the wall or meditate, whatever you want to do. The discipline it takes to not answer that phone, go straight to your computer. I struggled with that today because I had 2 major tasks that I really needed to handle. And I was like, no, don't do it. And I ended up failing halfway because I only did one, but I did do one. But those steps, taking the reins of your life and not just letting life happen to you, it changes how you move in everything you do. So it's not just a morning ritual. Morning rituals is not about the morning ritual. It's not about setting the tone. Those are great parts of it, but it's about so much more than that. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of that. Here's the next question, because this is the bigger one. Because morning rituals only happen when you wake up. Throughout the day, when the emails are coming, when the phone call and the bad news and the upset and this person, you got 50 miles an hour. There's not enough hours in the day to handle everything you got going because you double booked yourself to get some extra money. Those moments that are plenty, you know, is there anything you do throughout the day to first wake yourself up from the rat race? And 2, once you wake up, where do you take yourself? Affirmations? Are you running scenarios? Like anything you do throughout the day for as far as that? I call them mental exercises.
I like that. First off, I feel like you've been spying on me. Like, I feel like you just know my personality and like what I'm doing every day. I'm like, oh yeah, that's
well, you're right up the street. By the way, y'all, she doesn't live too far away. She's about an hour and a half away in St. Pete. I'm in Spring Hill.
Yes.
So yeah, but go ahead.
Yes. So for me, a lot of it, and I always say this to clients too, self-awareness. So for me, it's like just being able to take a quick pause kind of in between or even during those things, or recognizing like, okay, if I'm in front of my computer and those emails are flying in and I'm just like, oh my God, it's like one thing after another. As I start to get that response of like, oh, like why are all these coming in today? It's like that for me, that's kind of a trigger of like, okay, like clearly this is becoming overwhelming for you, or, you know, I'm eliciting some kind of emotion or shift in my energy. So let me take a pause and just practice awareness around that. For me, just working on my breath, focusing on my breath helps me to come back into my body and really bring me back into the present moment. So I'm not like ruminating on, you know, what I've been doing all day or what I need to do. And I know so much of us, or so many of us working in kind of a digital landscape, you know, everything is so cerebral. Like we're so in our head, you know, we're constantly analyzing, we're constantly going through the list, we're figuring out what we need to do. We're stressed out because like you said, there's not enough hours in the day to do everything. And so what are we going to get done? What, you know, how are we going to handle the things that we don't get done? So for me to just take a pause and get back into my body and get out of my head is super helpful for me. So that's a practice that I feel like I'm just doing constantly throughout the day as I feel myself starting to shift away from that baseline. And I try to encourage clients to do the same thing. And so one thing I'll have them do if I'm helping them work on coming back to their breath and really focusing on, you know, being present in the moment is I'll have them every time they're driving somewhere. If there's somebody who drives throughout the day or goes to work, every time they get to a red light, I'm like, okay, we're going to practice like real quick breathing exercises just to bring you back into your body. And so the red light's going to be your trigger. And so that's something that I also practice myself if I'm driving from client to client or taking care of appointments throughout the day. And then, you know, just making yourself, like you said, discipline around taking a break to sit down and eat lunch, or taking a break to, you know, spend 20 minutes meditating in the middle of your day or reading or whatever it is that's going to help get you out of that stressed out sympathetic nervous system state. And I think that regardless of what it is, it comes back to what you're saying, Neil, about having that discipline to do it. So a lot of times, you know, I think it's harder for us to not do the things we need to do than it is for us to just plow through the day and keep taking care of it, right? Like it's always the people who say, I don't have time to meditate. It's like, you're the exact person who needs to meditate. So, you know, just working that discipline muscle and, you know, whether that's setting an alarm on your phone, anything like that, I find super helpful. But for me, it's really just practicing bringing myself back to the present moment. Anytime I feel myself getting overwhelmed, anytime I feel myself, you know, just feeling like there's more than I can handle. Exactly.
Use it as a physical indicator. Something's wrong. And if too much is what's wrong, too little is going to be the solution. And people swear they don't have 5 minutes. You got 30 seconds to go take some deep breaths.
Yep.
You got 30 seconds. Make it happen. Well, I want to, I've been meaning to ask you forever. You've gone through a lot of life changes recently. I wanted to see if your morning rituals have changed. And before we go into that, I just wanted to just quick side note. If you're in a situation where when you answer 10 emails, you look up and there's 15 more, and then you answer 15 and you look up and there's 20, stop manifesting that. And I say that because of this. I have someone I've been working with for 2 years now. Very good at the law of attraction, watches a lot of stuff, does a lot of practices. But when I said that to her, she said, I'm not manifesting that. And I said, sweetie, your sentence was, every time I get through 10 emails, I find another 15 waiting for me. If that's your sentence, that's the seed you're watering. That's the future you're bringing into your life. Stop saying it out loud. Stop saying it to yourself. And so I had to really break it down for her like that. So if you're finding yourself in that situation, you can cut it down. And trust me, people could take that and say, well, then my business is going to fail. Then I'm going to less customers. It's good to have more. The universe will work itself out. Mm-hmm. It will work itself out to where you are meant to be peaceful. So you will be peaceful and still produce the way you want to produce. I just want to throw that out there. But Walt, morning rituals. Have you changed anything, or have you leaned into the ones you have?
I've done what most people do when they go through the kind of roller coaster I've been going through. I backtrack. I slide back, and then I try to figure out, okay, how can I stop sliding back? I mean, that's just the reality. Just to give you an idea, Allie, I've gone through an unexpected divorce, vehicle loss had to be replaced, income in trouble had to be replaced, new living situation, new apartment. I mean, just like everything all hitting at once over the last 4 to 5 months, and it's been settling down, but I'm still coming through that. And you go through stuff like that long enough, and it happens. Everybody experiences that at some point in their lives. When you have that happen enough, you start to feel punch drunk after a while. Like, okay, you start to expect what's the next bad thing that's going to happen, and that's the danger, of course. So, in answer to your question more specifically, I actually let it slide. I let the daily practices slide. Why? Because I was caught up in that whirlwind of the downward spiral. And so the real challenge is, can I get myself back? Well, yeah, I know the answer is yes. How soon can I get back to doing the daily rituals? How soon can I get back to the stuff? And it's a mind challenge in the midst of chaos. That's really what it is. Because chaos has been going on for quite some time. I manifested all the chaos, but that doesn't mean it's any less chaotic. Yeah, I still have to face, how am I going to deal with that chaos every day? I know what the solution is. And sometimes, honestly, I wake up and I say, oh, this shit doesn't work. Forget this. Now, I've been doing this show for 10 years, I mean, I've had so many different people I've talked to about, how wonderful this whole LOA concept is, and about other, psychological factors and so forth. And like everybody else, I'm still falling into a place of, this stuff doesn't work. When you're going through a spiral, you go through the spiral. That's the best answer I can give. And while you're going through the spiral, you just do whatever you can to get one hand grabbed onto the ledge so you can pull yourself back up again until you get pulled back up again. That's the deal.
That's life, up and down. Some ups are higher, some downs are lower. The way when you first described everything that was happening to you, Walt, you were like, relationship, car, house. I'm like, you were in the process of manifesting your soulmate, and in doing so, you got rid of the emotional attachment of the car and the house.
Oh yeah, there's look at it objectively. That's very clear. That's what's going on. Yeah.
So
but you still have to live through it.
Just got worded differently sometimes, and that's how it is, because your brain will tell you a bunch of stuff. Right there. These are notes from my last summit, and I don't know if you can see it, but it says, "Is it true?" Yeah. The brain will tell you all kinds of things about what you have and what you don't have. Is that true? Specifically, I want to find this this video This guy is talking about how much electricity we have in our body. And you know, his point at the end was different from where I was going with it, but it's like, when you say you ain't got no energy, you do. You're just not accessing it right now. You're not pulling it right now. You're plugged in, but you ain't switched on all the way. You got the little rolling knob and you only showing a dim light when you can go so much brighter. I'm gonna find the video for you guys. But okay, so we got law of attraction practices. We got law of attraction practices throughout the day. Now we gotta get to the best. What is your best, deepest law of attraction thing that you go to every day? Something you would tell your daughter, your son, or your parents are going through a hard time. You're like, look, you need to do this.
Oof. For me, and I can't say that I 100% do this every single day, but what has never failed me in the law of attraction is doing something that elicits the emotion of joy. So it doesn't matter if it's saying affirmations to myself that make me feel joyous, if it's going out. I'm very much a nature person. So if it's, for me, that brings me a lot of joy. I think like listening to what Walt was talking about is going on in his life. I was reflecting on, you know, how would I handle that? What would my approach be? And I know that anytime I've gone through something challenging or experienced any kind of loss in life, it's always been my ability to connect back to the very, very simple things in life that truly bring me joy, that gets me out of whatever negative, you know, spiral or funk or anything that I'm in. And it actually, for me personally, brings me a lot of hope. And I think that joy being one of the, you know, highest vibrating emotions, if you want to attract what it is that you want in your life, it needs to be from a place of feeling, you know, joy and feeling that emotion, that it's already happened because it's coming. So for me, it's practicing joy, and that looks different on different days. To be honest, it looks different depending on where I'm at in the world and in life. But finding something, I recently started adult gymnastics. I tore my hamstring yesterday, so I don't feel super great about that. But that has brought me so much joy because it's something I just enjoy so much. And so, you know, finding those things that help you elicit that emotion, regardless of what else is going on in your life or what you feel like is not. I feel like for me, that's been the biggest help in pulling me out of those low vibration emotions that are continuing to bring on whatever it is that I don't want, and helping me shift back to a place where I can, you know, show up in a higher capacity to attract the things that I do want.
We are tuning forks. We're always vibrating at something, and any two things that vibrate at the same frequency will naturally pull towards each other. So when you're thinking about that stress, or when you're thinking about that happy, that situation is vibrating at your frequency, and you are now pulling towards each other. People are moving and twisting, and things are getting out of the way to make it happen. But you can picture yourself in the Bahamas for 30 seconds, and for the next 5 minutes, prove to yourself why you can't get there. I can't get off of work. You know how much that would cost. I would have to find a babysitter. At that point, you're pushing that away from you. Mm-hmm. So you got to be real careful where you're spending your headspace. I want to see if I can bring this on screen for you guys. And of course, okay. Let's see if it'll work. Okay. And the audio might be terrible, but we'll figure it out.
You got to remember, most of our people are listeners only. They can't see the video, so you got to explain what they're seeing here.
Wait, they can't see the video?
Well, most of our listeners are audio only.
I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yes, yeah, it was just a video. You don't really have to see it, but you see what he said about how we have 0.7 millivolts of electricity in each cell, and 35 billion cells in our body. We're basically like a walking nuclear bomb, and that's just insane. So I think that's one of the number one struggles in people today, is they wake up and they don't have energy. And no matter how positive you are, if you know you got to go to work for the next 8 hours and you don't have a drop of energy, that sucks the life out of you. Mm-hmm. It literally feels like it sucked the life out of you. And so addressing that in this way, I think is perfect. because it's like you do have the energy. You're just not harnessing it. You're not using it. Pull it. It's in there. Pull it. Now,
a lot of this is really just self-reminder, because we know all this stuff. Well, regardless of whether, I mean, we know this because we do the podcast and we talk about this stuff all the time. But I mean, the world at large, we all know that these things are true. We just allow ourselves to be distracted away from it. That's really what it comes down to. Are we going to be distracted, or are we going to refocus?
And the further, or I should say, well, the further and the more time you spend away from it, the less you believe in it.
Sure, it starts to create a negative momentum.
Yeah, that becomes a problem too, because then you start looking at, like you said, you start every now and then you look at the law of attraction, like, man, this is bullshit, man. I wasn't thinking about that. Why it just gotta happen? But you got to get out of that. It's okay to think it once.
Well, the worst one, there's one that's actually worse than that. The one that's worse is the one that says the only law of attraction that works is the negative.
Oh, goodness. I know a couple of those people. That's the reason why I have such a tough time teaching the law of attraction in the hood. Like in any hood that I've been to, that is the hurdle that I'm forced to go over, because everybody looks at their life and everything's crappy in their life and everything's so luxurious to everybody in one neighborhood over and the rest of the world. And they're like, well, if the law of attraction is real, it's sucking for me. Some people are blessed and some people aren't. I was raised to believe that you are either going to make it or you're not. That's predetermined before you even go to school, before, in birth. You're either going to be a successful person or you're going to be working at McDonald's for the rest of your life, or you're going to get shot and killed dealing drugs. That was it. We didn't have no say. And you waited until you were 18 or you graduated high school to figure out which one you were going to fall in. And it never sat well with me, but everyone around me was on this same page. Every classmate, every classmate's parents, every teacher, the principal, everybody was on this page. And so I didn't know no better. I just knew something in me was refusing that. I just knew something in me was refusing. And then I started doing weird stuff. Like I was almost bending time and reality, some of the stuff that I was doing. And, became a cop and learned the law of attraction. Then I really started bending reality.
I was just going to say, you take the word almost out at that point, because there was no more almost about it.
No, the only thing I haven't done is levitate.
Yet.
Give them time on that one.
Give me some time, y'all. I spend enough time in the air as it is now. Allie, I don't know if you know, but I'm a pilot and I fly paramotors. And I know you know what paramotors are because they fly them down to St. Pete, especially on the Skyway Bridge, take off. Well, it's crazy. There's this long bridge that connects the bottom of basically St. Pete, Sarasota area. And in the middle, there's this little island underneath the bridge. And the crazy of us take off from there and land there.
The craziest? Is that the craziest, or is that the most enthusiastic?
The craziest, because some of us are enthusiastic but still don't take those chances. I personally have not been there, but that's just because the timing has never been right. I want to take off from the Skyway Bridge. Oh my goodness, I want to do that today if it wasn't gusting at 21 miles an hour. But yeah, so I spend so much time in the air because I love flying that I will levitate soon. I'll let you guys know when I get that done.
I love it.
Don't doubt it for a second, not 1 second. So I want to turn this into a question for Allie. So we've been talking a lot about negative momentum, a lot about negative momentum. And Neil was describing how he finds it his biggest challenge when he's dealing with people he knows from the hood. That's a big deal. I suspect you probably don't get too many like that in your practice. But if you're dealing with somebody who's experiencing and has experienced for most of their life that kind of belief system, what's your approach? How do you handle that? That's a tough one.
It really is a tough one. And I actually have a couple clients that come to mind as you ask that, because, whether it's like they went through a traumatic event in their childhood or they were always told. And for me, working in health and fitness, and particularly with women, a lot of the stories that women have about themselves is that they have to look a certain way, or they're not good enough, or they're not worthy, or they've been told all these things about what they can and can't do and be and look like. So it's helping them deconstruct all of those things. And then, add the layer of individuals who believe that, well, I've always been this way, or this is, my family, everybody in my family struggles with this, when we know now that epigenetics, or, how genes are expressed through things like lifestyle, nutrition, the choices that we make in our day-to-day lives, that has so much more of an impact versus what is actually, kind of programmed into our genetic code. And so helping clients with that, I mean, that is a struggle. Those are my hardest people, because so much of the work is not what we should be eating, what exercises we should be doing, what supplements we should be taking. It's about letting go of those stories and those beliefs that are holding them back from showing up in the capacity that they need to do in order to execute on the things that are going to help them feel better. But just like Neil Shirt says, thoughts become things. Thoughts that we have manifest into, physiological responses. And there is, biological changes that happen as a result of our thoughts. So not only do they become things in our external world, they become things in our internal world as well. And so, I'm fortunate that most of the women that I work with, they kind of trust me, and they, I'm able to take them on that journey. But for a lot of people, like, to grasp that concept, they're like, no way, there's no way that what I think and what I feel on an emotional level is impacting, my health or whatever else I'm manifesting into my life. And so, it's different for different clients. I love that you were talking, Neil, about your woman who, her sentence about like, well, I answer 10 emails and I attract 15 more, or I get 15 more. Because for me, something that I do in the coaching relationship is I just pay attention to the words that my clients are using when they're talking about themselves and they're talking about their health, talking about their bodies, and just kind of tuning into that language helps me kind of know where they're at, and what is going on up here and in here, to manifest what's kind of currently going on. So a lot of times it's working on reframing those thoughts, choosing different language patterns. I have clients, I'll give them exercises to just kind of connect them back to their body. And I'm like, look, it's going to feel silly and it's going to feel stupid at first. And you're going to like think I'm crazy, but do it for a couple weeks. And I promise you, kind of like practicing this stuff, right? Like you think, oh, there's no way there's any validity to this. And then you start doing it. You're a little hesitant. You do it a little more. Okay, I'm still a little skeptical, but maybe there's something to this. And finally you kind of break through that plateau point and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong.
That plateau point, by the way, is so important because everyone has their own journey, and we all get to the point in the beginning of our law of attraction journey where we're like, yo, I've been doing this for a week and nothing's changed. Even though you have slight changes, you're not appreciating them because we all let them go. But you get to that point and it's, do you push further? Do you continue with it, or do you go back to your old ways because it's too much work to do these mental exercise and morning rituals? And that's the breaking point. That's when you're either going to start producing or you're going to go back to your old ways. So I really appreciate that you said that, because that it's the difference between failing and succeeding. Either way you're manifesting, good or bad, all day, every day. Everyone listening, I hear so many people say, I'm going to start next week, Neo. I just got so much going on this week. And I'm like, bro, that's not how it works.
You're already manifesting. You're already doing it.
So it's like either way you're using it all day, every day. But this is the difference between you using it successfully. And by successfully, I mean producing the results you want as opposed to what's just happening. There's a difference between you happening to life and life happening to you. Straight up, 100%. That is the big difference between that. How much do you go into like epigenetics and stuff like that? And I wanted to say this too. You're the first fitness person that I've seen that puts this much emphasis into the law of attraction. It seems like the ones that I've known, the ones that I know are scared to cross that line. So they may bring it up a little bit, but they keep it about the gym. What reps, writing down how many sets, what your weight was, whatever it was. Not your weight, but how many weights you lifted for last week versus this week, and they touch on it. So I commend you on bringing that up, because that you could lose clients like that. Clients that think it's just hippie talk, you could lose clients like that. And so, it is a bold step. So I commend you on that.
I've been fortunate that like I've had clients where we've done all of those things and there's still the missing component. So I've seen that, and I think I'm a little, I don't think any of this is woo woo. I mean, from like a quantum physics perspective, I think we have, we're starting to get like what actual science behind things like the law of attraction are, but like, one might call me a little woo woo also. So I'm not just a gym rat. And I think I've had the blessing of manifesting some clients in, the last year or two that are kind of on that same page. So there's not so much friction there when I talk about these things. They're kind of like, oh yeah, like I've heard of that, or, oh yeah, maybe dabbled in that, or, you know, they're familiar to a certain degree. So it makes it a little easier.
You know what? I find that all you gotta do is really introduce it to people and let them go. You
Yeah.
know, they're gonna go home and they're either gonna look up a YouTube video about it and find one of my videos or something, or they're gonna just keep it in their head as woo-woo and they just not ready for it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you keep the relationship you have, you know, be it just hitting the weights for now until you come to, because eventually you're gonna come to me.
Yeah. Oh,
Say,
yeah.
man, I keep thinking about this, and then I got knowledge for you. Until then, you know, we're gonna let you, you know, explore and do your thing. I forgot the question I was just about to ask you. It was a really important one too. Kids. Do you have any kids?
I do not, but I do have 3 nephews, and one of them is 12 and he's getting his pilot license. So you made me think of him as you talked about it.
Nice. Well, the big question I was going to ask you is, are you, I don't want to say pushing, are you implementing, hinting, you know, to your nephew, or, you know, wait till he gets older?
As far as
law of attraction,
you
know.
Not, you know, that's a great question. Not directly. Unfortunately, they live in Atlanta, so I don't get to see them quite as frequently as I would like to. But when I do see them, I do put a lot of emphasis. So I have my nephews are 12, 10, and 8. And, you know, they'll just, you know, they say things or they get mad about things. And so I try to, you know, not necessarily in a manner of teaching them what's right or what's wrong, but I try to kind of guide them to like how a situation is going to benefit them, or, you know, so kind of indirectly, yes, but I've never, you know, said, hey, let me, you know, tell you about the law of attraction. But like, I feel like I've been fortunate to learn so many of these things and learn so many lessons in life up to this point. And I'm sure there's many more that are ahead of me. And so I try to take advantage of the opportunity to kind of instill some of that, you know, wisdom that I do have to them. And I know I'm like, when I say it to them, I'm like, I know it's probably not going to make sense to you right now, but one day you'll realize, you know, what I'm talking about, or you'll experience this yourself. And so, you know, understanding, you know, just keeping that in the back of your head, kind of planting that seed is definitely something that I try to do. And my sister's an amazing mother, but she has her hands full. And so, you know, anytime I see an opportunity to kind of impart little bits on them, I'm like, yeah, let's go for it.
My advice is go hard. Go hard. Because kids are like, you know, they get things kind of better than adults sometimes. Adults like to be convinced and stuff like that. And you got to ease it in there to not offend their religions and stuff like that. When it comes to kids, it's like, yo, majority rules. What you focus on the most is going to grow. I suggest you don't think about that all day.
Like, I like that. All right.
Wow. And then, and you set a pace for their life. That's the thing about, it's funny. We were talking about, I was supposed to meet with Les Brown this morning. I don't know much about him. I know he's a motivational speaker. And it's the thing about, I don't know how to describe it without disrespecting people, but like, let's say Tony Robbins. Most of the people I know have paid a lot of money to go see Tony Robbins or for his books. They don't remember shit he said on Monday when that email comes through, screwing up the rest of their day. They don't remember none of that. Maybe when they get home, they might recall it, but you just paid all that money for the seminar. Cool. This phrase, just seeing it on my shirt, later on in the night, you find yourself in a negative situation. You're like, man, maybe I shouldn't spend a headspace there. That got through, and it didn't cost you anything. And so for me, it's more like, forget the name and the speakers and all this other stuff. It's about the message. And if you can get this message across quickly and make it effective to where it is in the forefront of their mind, when the stress is coming, when the drama is coming, now you got something. And that's why I wear this shirt. Every day you see me with this shirt on, every time I leave the house, because I want everyone to just see this. And whether they see the back, that it says neopositivity.com on the back, whether they see the back at all, I don't even care. I just need them to see this. But so many people every day, oh my God, I love your shirt. You know what I say? The back is even better. I say that to everybody, like, can I see? Let me see. And I'm like, you ready? You ready for it? Boom. And I show them and they're like, oh my God, let me take a picture. So yeah, I actually made a couple of QR codes. I'm going to be ironing on to the back of some of the shirts I'm wearing in Chicago next week. But yes, implementing something solid that is going to stick forever. that's what you want to go for. And if you're talking to someone below the age of 17, 16, go right to it.
All right.
Go right to it. I guarantee the next time you talk to them after that, they're going to give you an example. Oh my goodness, I was thinking about this and it happened.
One great thing about kids is because they don't carry the kind of baggage that adults have, because they just haven't been here long enough to have enough baggage, they get it fast. I mean, there's not a lot of processing that goes on. It's like, well, yeah, of course. You know, what's the big surprise here? The only surprise is I hadn't heard that before. What took so long? I mean, that's the extent of the thought process. It doesn't have to go any further than that with a kid. So when you lay it out there, they just they're either going to lap it up or they're going to ignore it. There's not going to be an in between.
And you know what? It's the main question you're going to get is, well, I thought about this and that didn't happen. And that's when you just got to explain what the phrase majority rules means. Then once you've explained that, you've painted a picture that they will never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part about that is they're going to tell that to someone else. And the person they tell that is going to look at them with so much more respect. Even if they already looked at them with a tremendous amount of respect, they're going to be like, wow, you deep. You know, and then they get introduced to people and they get the job over other people and all kind of other stuff happens. So it's like, it's really a recipe for success. And I suggest
suddenly they're wearing Thoughts Become Things t-shirts. I mean, it's amazing how it leads to that.
As long as they get them from me. I've only seen one time I saw a Thoughts Become Things shirt. And I was like, somebody took my idea. Somebody's selling my shirts. And the dude turned around and said, neo-positivity. And I was like, he goes like this. I said, that's my shirt.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, I have not seen, officially have not seen anyone else with this written on their body anywhere. So holding on to it. I can't get the patent. 3 people have applied for the patent since the beginning of time. And all 3 of them are just left in limbo and pending. It just says pending. And then they're not going to give it to anybody. So.
Which is a good thing. Until
I strong arm them into giving it to me.
You just have to manifest it.
So. That's how I'm gonna strong arm them, baby. You know, I'm not gonna actually bend the government's arm, you know. I'll do it mentally.
So, Allie, I want to ask you a couple things here.
Yes.
Because we are starting to run out of time, and the hours do tend to fly by here. First things first, you're a coach. That's your main thing that you do.
Yes.
How do people find out about you?
So you can either go to my website, social media. My Instagram is where I'm most active. My handle is @AllieCassHealth. And yeah, I'm fortunate to have a large referral network here locally in St. Pete and through other clients. But yeah, if you are listening to this and you've not heard of me, have never chatted with me and want to connect, I'd love to connect with you either via social or online.
And how does that work? I mean, let's say they do go to AllieCassHealth.com. They see what you got there. Or what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. You can read about me, read about my story. If you want any more, I pretty much gave you the long and dirty on the show today. You can read about my program. You can schedule a free health audit. It's basically a session where we just sit down over Zoom and we just chat. We connect. I very much value the human to human connection. So we talk about you, your goals, where you're at now, where you want to be, and what's kind of keeping you stuck where you're at, and how we can help you kind of get over some of those hurdles to get to where you want to be.
And interesting, you're describing that as a health audit.
Yes. So really what I mean by that is, obviously most people come to me with some sort of health or some sort of fitness goal. And so we sit down, we talk about, okay, what is this goal? Where are you at now? What are you experiencing? Either it's health challenges, or, maybe you're doing all these things that you think are right, and you're still not reaching your goal. So we really audit your lifestyle. We kind of audit your nutrition, as much as we can on a 60-minute consultation call. We audit, again, your mindset. Where are you at? How are you showing up? What's affecting you? What are you not letting go of? And I basically help guide people to see what those big rocks are. We all have things that we can work on, but what's going to get you the most amount of movement? I do think it was Tony Robbins that said this, so don't shoot the messenger, but I heard a phrase that was like, we tend to major in minor things. And I see this all the time with people in health. They're focusing on very small, like nuanced things, when really there's bigger things that are going to get them more success at first. So I try to help people identify, where are we spending our time and energy, and what's serving us and what's not, and what do we need to shift focus to. And then, I just kind of let them run with that. If they choose to work with me at that point, awesome. If they feel that they can implement it and they want to run with it, awesome. My goal in those calls is really just to connect with people and kind of help break them out of, where they're feeling stuck.
Yeah, that feeling stuck thing, that pretty much summarizes almost everything we talked about, that feeling stuck. It's one of the shortest phrases we have to describe it, but when you're feeling stuck, it's like the entire universe just kind of closes down into this one little negative rabbit hole, and all you can see is the rabbit hole. There's nothing else.
You got to see it like a roller coaster ride. When you're waiting in line, like, man, it's going to be another 45 minutes before I get a chance to ride this ride. But you're continually moving forward. In life, you feel stuck. Your day feels like you just didn't even leave the house today. I ain't do nothing today. I didn't accomplish nothing today, even though you went through 30 emails and answered them all. You got to see it like that line. It's moving. I might not have got on a ride today, but it's moving. So keep that visual.
Yeah, one of the best things that Neil talks about is when he talks about don't worry about what hasn't happened, give more attention to it did happen in your mind. He has a thing called the wall. His little exercise is called the wall, and it's a very simple little device, but it's a device that basically allows you to separate the results from the activity, because that's where we get all tangled up. The results have got. Where's the results? The results aren't here yet. Well, then this stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, that's why I tell clients to focus on the process. What do we need to do? Focus on the action, learn to fall in love with the process, and the result will come naturally. And you won't be so stressed out about it in the meantime.
Boom.
Definitely it. Right there. Boy, that just summarized it beautifully. I love that. So, Neil, I haven't asked in a while, but I imagine it's coming. Do you have any summits coming up?
No, the next summit is going to be July.
Oh my God! This is a guy, Allie. This is a guy who does like a summit a month practically. July. That's like the desert. I mean,
is it July in Florida? Is it
it's a virtual.
Okay.
But I was doing summits every month, and it just got. I had an 8-man crew too, and it was just got to be too much. And so I try to do it every 3 months, but then I kind of went on a mini tour. And now I'm like every 6 months, because I'm literally about to start a tour, and it's going to be insane. So yeah, it's like my tour isn't like most tours where people leave their house and don't come back for 6 months. I have a 5-year-old plus my other kids. And so I need to be here once a week. So I call it a mini tour. If I'm leaving 2 weekends a month to go, to Los Angeles or Chicago or Minnesota, then that's what I call being on tour. Like 2 weekends a month, I'm gone, and I'm retired. So other than that, so I just get to hang out here with my son all the time. So that's what I'm focused on, shows.
Neo has redefined the word retired. He uses the word retired, and there's nothing retired about him. I mean,
everyone keeps saying that. I am a retired police officer, and
this is true.
Avid speaker.
Yeah. That's a good description. I like that. But another good description is that AllieCast Health is all about the holistic health, and yes. I really do. I know Neo does too. We both really appreciate you coming onto the show, sharing your good stuff, sharing this great work that you're doing. Like so many people who come onto the show, you're a giver, and givers need to be recognized. There are many people you'll never meet, you'll never see, who have absorbed your content. They saw you on a podcast, they heard you on a podcast, they read a blog post, they just consumed your content in some way. Maybe they even got onto a call with you, but you never find out what they did. You never find out how they were able to apply it in their lives, and I think it's important to recognize that. So on behalf of those people you'll never meet and you'll never see, thank you for what you've been doing and what you continue to do.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me today.
It was a treat. Really is a treat.
Yep.
Shout out to all my first responders and military.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Neil always focuses me. We got to remember that every time. So thank you for doing that, Neil. And thank you for the service you've given as well.
I second that.
Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere.
Thank you, Walt. And thank you, Walt, from all the people that you'll never know about. You've been doing this 5 days a week for 10 years, brother. 5 days dedication, man. And I've tried to do that and have not succeeded because my attention span. So thank you for the dedication and having me on your show, brother.
Thank you. Wow. I appreciate that. I totally received that and very much appreciated. I can tell you what the secret is. Be curious, not judgmental. That's the whole thing.
Mm.
The more curious you are, there is no lack of questions to ask when you're curious.
And it's funny, they tell us curiosity killed the cat, but it's when you think you know it all that you stop learning and cut yourself off from growth. Period.
By the way, a little side story: the origin of that phrase "curiosity killed the cat," it actually comes from a newspaper article that appeared in the mid 1910 to 1920 range about a cat that got trapped in a fireplace and died. Now, did they know that the cat got up there because of curiosity? No, they inferred it. So they inferred an activity and turned it into a cliche that isn't actually true.
And we're still saying it 100 years later.
Yeah, right. Go figure.
That sounds like a formula that has been used several times in our culture.
Yes. So you've got to be careful about your cliches. But what we don't have to be careful about is how wonderful it's been to have Allie on the show. Thank you again for being here. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.